So how many of you guys remember the old saying that Jay-Z made famous when he said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie? Well, apparently, throughout 2 weeks of Cleveland Browns training camp, the numbers don't even matter because Shedeur Sanders has been the best quarterback out of the four that the Browns currently have on their team. Throughout 2 weeks of training camp, Shedeur has led all of the Browns quarterbacks in completion percentage, completing 70% of his passes. He's thrown the most touchdowns and no interceptions. Somehow, though, he still is stuck being the fourth quarterback on the depth chart and taking the least amount of first-team reps out of the four QBs locked in this ongoing quarterback battle. Normally, when you have a quarterback that has performed so well, that has looked so efficient, he's in the conversation to be the starting quarterback. Shedeur Sanders, it's a different situation for him, though. The reason why Shedeur is still QB4 for Cleveland has nothing to do with his performance on the field. Because if the numbers don't lie, then they show that Shedeur Sanders is not only the best quarterback that the Browns have at the moment, but he also should be the front runner to be the starting quarterback week 1 during the regular season. But why is this not the case, though? Why is it that despite how spectacular Shedeur Sanders has performed in training camp, he still is slotted as QB4? Politics. Do you know what bad teams do? They, instead of starting the better player, they choose the player that they want to start based on optics, right? Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett are veteran QBs, but neither one of those guys at the current state that both of them are in their career are better than Shedeur Sanders. Based off the numbers, Shedeur Sanders has outperformed Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco. Kenny Pickett has been nothing more but a bona fide backup quarterback at this point in his career. Joe Flacco, the glory days are over. He has to retire sooner rather than later. The Browns are hoping to strike gold on the end of the rainbow twice, because since Joe Flacco led them to the playoffs 2 years ago, they think that he can do it again, which I strongly doubt. You're trying to recapture magic with Joe Flacco that simply isn't there. Your hope for Kenny Pickett is that he can have a redemption arc that Sam Darnold had with the Vikings last season, when the difference between the two is that one is more talented and more athletic than the other. Sam Darnold has a really good arm. He's a really good athlete. Kenny Pickett is the complete polar opposite of that. Kenny Pickett may be the least athletic quarterback in the NFL right now. He doesn't have a single athletic bone in his body, and he has a weak arm. Dillon Gabriel being quarterback 3 over Shedeur Sanders right now, when he has had the lowest completion percentage out of any quarterback in Browns training camp right now. He's thrown the most interceptions, has somehow gotten 43 more pass attempts, 43 more pass reps than what Shedeur has. Why? Because of politics. The Browns don't want to accept that Shedeur Sanders is the more superior quarterback than what Dillon Gabriel is. Shedeur, coming out of college, was better than Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel just looked better in the eyes of the people who didn't watch the film, because they have the misconception that I have to clear up, that because Dillon Gabriel won more games than Shedeur, that means he was the better quarterback. Do you not know how stupid you sound trying to justify who's a better quarterback off a team achievement? Winning games is what teams do, not what quarterbacks do, what teams do. Oregon had one of the most expensive teams in college football last year. Of course, Dillon Gabriel was going to put up good numbers. Do we forget? If you don't want the starting quarterback of your favorite team to play like Anthony Richardson, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Check us out, JT Sports, on all podcasting platforms. Give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Let's get back to the video. Stetson Bennett, who was a walk-on quarterback for Georgia, won back-to-back national championships. You don't have to be a good quarterback to win in college football. I'd rather take the guy who turned around a program that before he arrived only won one game. I'd rather take the quarterback that delivered the university that he played for their second winning season in over 2 decades. Everywhere Shedeur Sanders has gone, he's won. He's dominated. He was the most accurate quarterback in the history of college football. And we've seen that translate over to the NFL, because who has been the most accurate quarterback in Browns training camp up to this point? Shedeur Sanders. But instead of the Cleveland Browns giving more reps to Shedeur Sanders, who has been the better quarterback out of the bunch, they choose to play politics. They have to justify their reasoning for drafting Shedeur Sanders 5th and taking Dillon Gabriel ahead of him in the 3rd round, when taking Dillon Gabriel in round 3 was a reach anyway. Dillon Gabriel at his best is a low-end stopgap quarterback. He's undersized, he has a weak arm, and he doesn't have to acquire athleticism to succeed as a sub-6-foot quarterback in the NFL. When you think of some of the smallest quarterbacks that have played in the league that have had success, they've had either elite athleticism, Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, or they were incredibly accurate. Dillon Gabriel is none of those things. I thought that Dillon Gabriel was a perfect match for the Miami Dolphins to back up Tua, because he's a great value brand version of Tua. But going to a team that plays in cold weather with no dome, it's just an easy recipe for failure for him. He is not a franchise quarterback. But the Browns don't want to admit that they're wrong about Dillon Gabriel, so they have to continue to force him to be something that he's not, which is better than Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders is obviously a better quarterback than Dillon Gabriel. The numbers throughout the first 2 weeks in training camp right now support that. What Shedeur Sanders did in college with a way worse team than what Dillon Gabriel had support that. Shedeur Sanders has been the best quarterback of all of the ones the Browns currently have in this quarterback competition based off what the numbers say. You can't say the numbers don't lie, but that only doesn't apply to Shedeur Sanders. They're trying to demean how good he is. He was a projected 1st, 2nd round selection. The talent is there. Where you get drafted does not define how good of a player you are. And if the Browns truly are having an open quarterback competition, like how they claim this would be before training camp started, then Shedeur should be getting the same amount of reps, the same amount of opportunities as what everybody else is. But he's not. Why? Because of politics. This is what bad organizations do. Instead of starting the best player, instead of starting the guy who has been miles better than everybody else, the Browns choose to play games. They choose to start Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett with the 1st string, and Shedeur Sanders gets what's left of the scraps. That's what the Browns are doing with Shedeur Sanders. They're just throwing him scraps. Everybody else has made their plate. Everybody else is at the table eating good. Shedeur has to wait for everybody else to get their plate, to get all of the food, and then they leave him with what's left of the crumbs. Shedeur Sanders can't beat the Browns' politics. I'm rooting for Shedeur to win this job. I truly am, but based off how this competition is going, we're entering into week 1 of the preseason. I strongly doubt that Shedeur will get an opportunity to start this year unless the Browns owner forces their hand to do so. And by doing that, that would be the best decision that Jimmy Haslam has ever made. You have no choice but to force their hand if you're Jimmy Haslam and tell Kevin Stefanski to do the right thing, stop blackballing Shedeur Sanders, and start him. He's the better of the 3 quarterbacks. The numbers support that. I'm more concerned what's going to happen when the preseason starts. How is it going to look for Shedeur? With him being QB4 right now, he's going to get thrown in with only 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter against guys that aren't more than likely going to make the roster or going to be practice squad guys, which is a bad situation for Shedeur Sanders because it's nearly impossible to put up good numbers when everybody else is playing with better players on the second and third team, like what Dillon, Gabriel, and Kenny Pickett are going to have the opportunity to get. Shedeur won't be afforded that same opportunity because the Browns don't care about the numbers. The numbers don't lie. That's true. But they are being ignored by Cleveland because if the numbers actually mattered to them, Shedeur Sanders, they would know by this point it's the best quarterback and the guy who should be leading this competition to be their week 1 starter.